It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? If you are part of my mom's generation, you recognize that saying. You probably heard it each evening before you watched the nightly news. The idea was simple enough. Parents ought to make sure their children are in the house at a decent hour. Who would argue with that, other than a teenager wanting to stay out late? Today the question should be asked this way. Do you know where your children are spiritually? Is little Johnny biblically literate? Does Sally know the difference between virginity and purity? Are your children on the road to responsible Christian adulthood, or are they part of an alarming new trend that has seen the overwhelming majority of so-called Christian children walk away from the faith? As I was writing this book, I had the privilege of preaching a series of sermons at Palm Beach Atlantic University. In the Thursday morning chapel service, I preached a message on biblical manhood. I basically walked through Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25, and issued a challenge to the young men and women to live up to and expect nothing less than the biblical standard when considering marriage. It was a powerful experience. I knew I had hit a nerve. After the message, I had an opportunity to talk to a number of students who had never heard such a challenge. Even faculty and staff members walked up to me and said, "I wish my father had shared that with me 20 years ago." Several young ladies asked if they could speak with me privately. A number of young men remarked, "You really raised the bar." The campus was buzzing. One young woman, who was obviously wrestling with what she had heard, sat down next to me during lunch, took a deep breath, and began to share her heartbreaking story. She was a 21-year-old junior who was wrestling with a serious relationship. She said that she loved the young man very much, but he was none of the things that the Bible clearly taught a prospective husband must be. She began to fight back tears as she asked, "What am I going to do?" As I probed, I discovered that she had been seeing the young man for over 2 years. The two of them were very serious, and although she did not say so, I would be very surprised if they did not have a sexual relationship. She had obviously been agonizing over the future of this relationship long before my sermon, but what she heard that morning pushed her over the edge. However, the relationship was so serious and had lasted so long that she wondered if she needed a support group to help her get over it. I asked her if she knew any mature Christian women who could help her through this difficult time. She did not. I asked her if she was part of a Bible study or a small group. She was not. I asked if she was attending a church. She was not. I spent half an hour with this young woman. At the end of that hour, I tried to think about her situation from the perspective of a father whose daughter is just a few years younger than this young lady. Immediately, my heart began to break. This young woman to whom I was speaking had grown up in the church. She came from a good family. In fact, her family was so committed to her and to her future that they sent her off to an expensive private Christian university. However, just a few years after leaving home, she was not attending church, had invested 2 years in a relationship with a young man who had also abandoned the church, and had developed a worldview that was anything but biblical. Unfortunately, this is not an isolated incident. According to researchers, between 70 to 88% of Christian teens are leaving the church by their second year in college. That's right, modern American Christianity has a failure rate somewhere around 8, almost 9 out of 10 when it comes to raising children who continue in the faith. Imagine the alarm if nearly 90% of our children couldn't read when they left high school. There wouldn't be room enough at school board meetings to hold all of the irate parents. While these numbers are astonishing, they should not be surprising. Over the past several years, a number of researchers have discovered that the overwhelming majority of our teenagers who still attend church and identify themselves as Christians have belief systems that mitigate their claims. Researcher George Barna, for example, discovered that 85% of born-again teens do not believe in the existence of absolute truth. Over 60% agreed with the statement, "Nothing can be known for sure except the things you experience in your own life." More than half of those surveyed believe that Jesus sinned during his earthly life. Christian Smith and his research team at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, conducted the largest study of teen religion to date. Their research was published in a book called Soul Searching. The National Study of Youth and Religion discovered that while U.S. teens are very religious, their religion is largely ambiguous. This ambiguity is due in large part to the lack of time and attention devoted to spiritual matters compared to other activities. Smith notes, our research